Now, Johannesburg and surrounding areas have been hit by severe water cuts, and water interruptions have also been scaled up in recent weeks. The deteriorating situation recently forced Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, to intervene and to give Rand Water the go-ahead to temporarily implement water shifting in Gauteng. Now, water shifting is redirecting the water flow from areas with lower consumption to communities affected by outages and shortages. Now, is water shifting an early sign of the equivalent of load shedding when that started in 2007? So to help us unpack this phenomenon, we are joined now virtually by Associate Professor and Water Management Expert at UNISA, Professor Anja du Plessis. Professor du Plessis, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
So many are saying, well, this sounds pretty much like the beginning of load shedding back in 2007 when we first, heard that term. And now we're talking about water shifting. Is that a fair comparison?
Look, if you ask people from Brixton and Greenside and Emerald Church that have been sitting without water for days, even before the heat wave, it almost seems like we're heading the same way. But hopefully some interventions will be put in place. We have been going through this cycle for many years. Last year, September, October, we were sitting in exactly the same situation. However, at that point, we were sitting with stage 6 blackout. So that exacerbated the situation. However, it seems like since the beginning of this year that things have deteriorated quite rapidly with increase in water shortages, as well as stoppages or no supply in certain areas.
Professor du Plessis, what are the reasons for this? What are the driving factors? Because, one would have imagined at first we were told it's because of the power situation with the Eskom power cuts, but seemingly the situation is actually deteriorating.
Exactly. There's multiple factors that have been playing an ongoing role within the country in terms of its water systems and water resources. We have to remember that South Africa is a water scarce country. So we are very lucky and blessed with our dams being overfull and having a good water supply. However, as I said, we've been sitting with the same situation for more than a decade. Things have deteriorated. But the primary reasons for this is basically that no maintenance has taken place. There's been mismanagement. Either questionable decisions were taken or the incorrect ones. And what we've basically been doing over the years is trying to treat the systems, and water shifting is almost like a Band-Aid that you're now going to put on a festering wound. We need obviously an interim measure. However, this could have been avoided, and it's quite easy to say that. You said that we could have avoided this. However, because hindsight, it's very easy in that terms. But basically, the driving forces are major water losses, poor management, and then also poor planning from a certain point.
Well, as you say, Professor du Plessis, this was avoidable. Unfortunately, we didn't avoid it. Now we're stuck in this crisis. And the question for many is whether this current situation will be exacerbated, because that is the worry.
Look, if we are looking at the current trends that's been ongoing since January, as I said, water shortages and stoppages have actually increased at a rapid rate, especially if you can even Google City of Johannesburg and water, and you will see that since January 2022, we've been sitting with increased shortages and outages. If you look at the updates given by Rand Water and by Joburg Water, first of all, they blamed the consumer. Then when experts and other media raised the fact that more than 40% of water is actually getting lost before it even reaches the consumer. So despite us having a high consumption, and that's not the only reason. So it seems like there's been a blame game consistently between Joburg Water and Rand Water. Joburg Water, as I see from their recent updates, well, daily updates, they're basically saying that there's no supply and high consumption, and or poor supply from Rand Water. And Rand Water is saying, on the other hand, it's due to high consumption, and people should now be reporting leaks as well, as I saw in the update this morning.
So water shifting, we're told, is the immediate solution. Again, the problem is the maintenance of that infrastructure that has deteriorated in some instances to a point of collapse, Professor du Plessis. So where to from here? Do we have the resources to actually deal with the infrastructure backlog and, of course, the refurbishment of what needs to be fixed? Are those budgets available, or are we in for more pain in that regard as well?
Look, I think it obviously has to be prioritized by the Department of Water and Sanitation. They are the custodian of our water resources within our country. So the minister has to be very assertive in the decisions that he makes at this point in time. The situation is not getting better. It's actually deteriorating. And the question regarding water shifting is around, do we actually have the technical expertise, first of all? Will our current infrastructure that's already in a poor state, will that be able to cope with the redirecting of water? And do we actually have the capacity in terms of the infrastructure? Can it actually redirect water? So that's some of the questions that has been raised that I've seen in some communities. But it seems like this is going to be ongoing. And another issue is ongoing blackouts. So we're now sitting again with stage 2, and we know that for us to get water, you need power and electricity. So the other question that is, has there been put in some interventions in place to ensure that there's some kind of power backup or backup pump station or whatever to keep the water flowing? Because as we've seen, as soon as the water is at all reservoirs and water towers are at a critical level, some regions actually take more than 48 hours even to recover. And when they do maintenance, which is very needed, we're sitting with a buffering capacity of maybe 18 hours, and it should be 48 hours. So they will have to make some kind of money available to try and prioritize, firstly, the major leaks, the major issues at hand, and then fix those.
So, final question, Professor du Plessis. We've now seen this water shifting in Gauteng, and some cynics would say if you can get away with it in Gauteng, you can probably get away with it anywhere. What is your prognosis here? Do you believe that this is something that could be contained, or is it possible that this could spread to other parts of the country?
Look, I think we need to emphasize this is not the norm, and it shouldn't be. The minister quite rightly emphasized that this is an interim measure, and Joburg Water as well as Rand Water needs to come up with, firstly, Joburg Water needs to submit a water management plan, and Rand Water also needs to do certain things in terms of trying to increase supply towards the reservoirs, etc. So this should be an interim plan. And we know that sometimes if we stop the pressure on our government or people that are responsible, that we try and keep on the pressure to make sure that this doesn't become the norm, and that problems are actually fixed, and that we stop putting band-aids on festering wounds and actually just address the main issues at hand, the main problems, so that people can actually have water coming out of their taps.
Professor du Plessis, thank you so much, and hopefully that goes straight from your lips to government's ears. Professor Anja du Plessis there speaking to us about water management and also explaining to us some of the problems that we are currently facing. Water shifting. So it sounds eerily familiar to when we started with load shedding. But as the Prof says, hopefully there will be solutions found and the infrastructure developed and fixed where it needs to be so that this doesn't get worse.